I recently met up with my friend Oli Fletcher, who runs the YouTube channel Farming Explained. Oli is a history graduate from Oxford and he farms in Leicestershire. He's also a Labour member, therefore proving that it's untrue that all farmers vote Conservative, and also the other myth that farmers all voted Brexit. So, Oli, it's been 5 years since Brexit happened. Can you believe it? 5 years.
It's a long time. Well, when Brexit happened, I was actually a child. I was at school.
Oh my God, did you not have a vote on Brexit?
No, I didn't have a vote, you see, which is a thing, because people say that farmers voted for Brexit, but I very literally did not. I didn't even have a choice. Yeah.
So, I feel really, it still makes me want to cry, Brexit. It was just the worst decision. You know, it's just horrendous. But I think if I hadn't been able to vote on it, if I'd been young, I would feel really annoyed now, because my future has been, your future has been stolen.
My future has been stolen from me. Yeah, well, it's weird. Well, back in 2016, it was, wasn't it? Yeah. We were milking still, so we had a little farm of 100 cows. But obviously, there's lots of pressures against small dairy farmers at the minute. But like, we used to make use of foreign labour because a lot of British people don't want to do farm work, which I think is a shame. Obviously, this is before Clarkson's Farm and lots of people taking a fresh interest in it. So all of the Romanians that we employed went home because the exchange rate fell and it wasn't as lucrative for them to work here. So we lost that support, and we couldn't get workers from Britain, even though we used to pay a pretty reasonable wage. Actually, the same amount I now get paid, however many years later with all this inflation. So it's a shame, but for what? We used to have a little business that produced cheap, nutritious food, employed sort of 2.5 people, and supported the family. Well,
and looked after the environment.
And our animals, and preserved rural culture and kept a bit of. Well, it's just production in Britain. We don't produce anything anymore, So it's a shame. It's a shame. I feel it's a loss, and for what benefit?
And have you travelled since Brexit?
Have
you been on a plane?
You've asked if yes, I have.
I mean,
it's embarrassing.
How
it's
bad
embarrassing.
is it?
It's embarrassing because if you go on a plane, you get EU. When you're doing the passports, it says EU, and then it says non-EU and Britain, because we're so stupid. They have to remind us that we're not in the EU anymore. So every time I go to an airport, which is not very frequently, I am reminded that everyone outside of this country now thinks that we're morons. It's embarrassing, really.
What do you think about rejoining? Do you think we need to rejoin the European Union?
Liz, on my channel, I read about the Second World War. I'm not there yet.
I know, but we're on my channel now.
No, we're on your channel now. I know.
I'm asking you.
I'm not in the headspace. I would like to rejoin, but unfortunately, I feel that politicians don't talk about it enough. To the point that it almost doesn't feel like an option, because they don't discuss it. Which is why. But that's why I just hesitated, because you asked me a question. And I went, I haven't thought about it. This isn't what I think about. But the reason for that is because it isn't discussed. The media doesn't talk about it. Politicians don't talk about it.
Michael Heseltine does.
Yeah, I know. I actually, obviously, see, I'm 24. It was just my birthday the other day. But I didn't really know who Michael Heseltine was.
Did you get drunk on your birthday?
That's why we're in Oxford at the minute, and I've been. Yeah, no comment. But I didn't know who Michael Heseltine was, you see, and when I was like 16 and all this stuff was going on, I was just like, he's a legend. And then my dad was like, maybe not. But you see, I didn't know, but to me, he's just essentially like an anti-Brexit campaigner for someone of my generation. So yeah, Michael Heseltine does do that, but he's quite old now, isn't he? He's 90 something.
In his 90s, yeah.
Yeah, but there you go.
He's absolutely spot on Brexit. You can't agree with somebody about everything, but he's absolutely
No,
right
of course, yeah.
Because we are part of Europe. When you think about Brexit, and what we've done on energy security alone. I know we normally talk about food, but energy's linked to food and farming anyway. But ultimately, we've cut up our contract because we rely on the continent for our energy, and so all we've done is make it more complicated to get energy in this country, which means it's more expensive for everyone. It's the same with food.
It's the same with food, yeah. Well, a lot of our energy companies are owned by foreign governments, which means our bills subsidise their bills.
Yeah.
It's nuts. We don't own our own country anymore.
There ought to be an urgency to rejoin because it will make life a lot easier for people. Things will be cheaper.
Yeah.
That's why a Rejoin campaign I think is brilliant, because you sort of say you can honestly promise cheaper food, cheaper energy, a better cost of living, all of these sort of things.
Yeah.
And so why is a party not? And the one I feel the most angry with the Liberal Democrats.
They're starting to say it now.
They're not starting to say it, Ollie. It's absolute rubbish what they're saying. They're saying the customs union. You can't just join the customs union.
Yeah,
and they said that
they've
been saying that they want to rejoin, but it was on page 500 at the back of the manifesto, and it didn't really make any sense. It was a word salad.
Yeah.
And now they're just playing jiggery-pokery with it. We need a leader like Michael Heseltine, who just says, you know what, forget everything else. We just need to go down on bended knees and beg to rejoin and to get back as close to Europe as possible. That is my strong view. If I was the Prime Minister, that is exactly what I would be doing. And it's the only reason I'd like to be Prime Minister. It would only take me a day. I'd go in there to Europe and I'd say, we need to rejoin, and then I could retire.
Yeah, you'd be good at that. That would be wonderful.
The success of the supermarkets in Britain has ensured that the people and our governments have become disconnected from farming, and it's seen largely as a hobby. Now we are no longer in the CAP. We have more aggressive anti-farming policies than ever before, and this latest government are intensifying that aggressive assault on our industry and this country's food and food security. They assume that we will always be able to import food and that we don't need farming. And it doesn't take much to work out that that is a very risky strategy. Britain needs food security. Food security is national security. Well, I think for us farmers, we're all remote, and so it's quite good for our social skills and mental health to get out and start chatting to each other, because we spend most of the time on our own.
Yeah.
And everyone says, oh, don't you realise how lucky you are? But actually, most people, when they come to our farm, after about 24 hours, they start shaking. I've got to go. It's too remote.
This is true. Before I came to university, I had a gap year working on local dairy farms, and when I got in, my boss was like, oh, that will be good for him because he'll go and speak to a girl, which maybe I needed. Maybe I learned nothing from it, I don't know. But it's lovely to meet farmers.
It's nice speaking to girls as well.
It is nice speaking to girls as well. Yeah, Liz helps me with that. But yeah, no, the industry is a community, and it's really lovely when you go to London because, everyone goes to the pub and has a lemonade, of course, afterwards. And they all talk to each other, and you meet people from all over the country doing all sorts of different things, and it's a really nice thing.
But I know most people feel alienated away from farming, and they think, well, what do they do? And they're lucky they live in the countryside, and it's lovely. But actually, as I said, if you lived on a farm, or if you tried to, you would soon get fed up with this. A lot of mud, particularly if you've got livestock like I have. A lot of mud, and then there's a lot of flies. And
in the summer, and winter's very long,
and you have to drive everywhere to do anything. It is much easier to live in a modern house in a town or a city near a supermarket and shops and pubs and clubs and have a job Monday to Friday. But farming is addictive, and farmers like doing this, and the British public should back it because it gives everyone good, healthy food and ensures our food security, which makes us a stronger nation. And obviously, then we don't have too many food shortages and problems like that, which is why we need them. But also, the way it's worked for British farmers is that we pass on the knowledge generation to generation. Because if the corporates, the big corporations come in and run farms, it just becomes industrialised. And all of that knowledge that we use to produce food in a sustainable way and to make sure animals have a healthy life will be gone forever and forgotten. And largely that has happened with the clothing industry, if you think about it.
Yeah. You asked someone about clothes today.
And the clothing industry is controlled by, I think, 4 or 5 really large corporations now. When I was growing up, a lot of them used to come from farms because we used to wear wool, and there was much more of a cottage industry.
Yeah. No,
And now it's become massively industrialised, and that is what will happen to food. It'll become even more industrialised and controlled by a few hands.
Yeah. Well, we've just been doing some vox pops. That's why we're together. And one chap asked if supermarkets owned all the farms. And although they obviously supermarkets are big players in food processing, food supply is still quite thinly distributed throughout the country, which I think is a good thing because it means it's stable. You know, my family have 120 acres, so that's our little bit that we use as we believe will best suit the environment and society, etc. But if that's true of lots and lots and lots of different people, then it's quite a stable
But that's what they want to end. That's why they brought
whereas
in.
if you have corporate
That's why they
control
brought
of
in
land, then it's
a budget
it will go
which
very
makes
differently.
farming unviable, and they did admit it. Tony Blair's former advisor, they wanted to do to us what they did to the miners, and you know what they did to the miners. They got rid of the miners.
A privileged status for their farms, and I think that may or may not be right. I'm personally in favour of doing to farmers who want to go on the streets. We can do to them what Margaret Thatcher did to the miners.
So just to be clear, John, you would beat them up?
No, close them. I mean, this is an industry we could do without.
So, okay, all right. So this got weird. So you would do to farmers what Margaret Thatcher did to miners, which was, and she used very heavy-handed police tactics, followed by what? Putting them out of business.
If people are so upset that they want to go on the streets and spray slurry on them, then we don't need the small farmers.
Right. Okay, John, I'm not sure that's a particular... You were, just to clarify, you were a former Labour special advisor, possibly emphasis on the word former there, but just to go on...
And it's shocking that they want to get rid of farms, because what will replace them? I wasn't shocked to get rid of mines because they were a blot on the landscape. They were jolly dangerous.
Well, yeah,
and you don't eat coal, whereas, what you eat.
That is the difference. Yeah, that's how I see it. I'm as much as I would sympathise with communities being attacked by the government. The closure of the mines has been a disaster for our ability to produce coal.
Well, and you know what?
The closure of the farmers will be a disaster for our ability to produce food.
Where I grew up in Wales, when they destroyed the mines, then actually that's when farming increased in Wales, and we had more sheep in the valleys. And now that's going to go. What's going to be there in the valleys if there's no farming here?
Some scrub.
It's shocking.
Lots of wildfires, I imagine.
But what are the local people going to do for anything? All sorts of industries come into farming. I think it's just heartbreaking. I hope people really understand this. That's why we do this.
It's almost
and it is linked to rejoining the EU. Farming policy, as we know now, came in after the war with a Labour government. Attlee brought it in. This is left-wing economic policy, and we've got a Labour government who are destroying it. That's shocking as well.
It is
really
absurd. Agricultural policy is food policy. It affects everybody, but they seem to have forgotten this, which is a shame. And maybe it's all tied in with the American trade deal because they think they could get cheap food that
and
way.
India, imagine.
And yeah. Maybe, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what they do. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, hopefully we'll win.
Yeah, hopefully yes, they'll do what we want. We'll have to wait and see when they do what we ask of them. Yeah.
Oli has a brilliant YouTube channel called Farming Explained. Do go and check it out and watch his videos, which are so interesting and brilliant. We also are doing a podcast together on a channel called Save British Farming. So please do hop over there and subscribe.
Farmers, we are fighting for our survival at the moment, but we are fighting for our communities, for our food standards and our health, for our environment, both as an amenity and to keep our diets eco-friendly. We are fighting against individualism. We are fighting against corporate control of resources. We are fighting for affordable, nutritious food for the people. We are not the right-wing people here. The right-wing people are the Labour Party. They are not communists. They don't want state control of land. They are not socialists. They don't want worker ownership of the means of production or a reintroduction of the marketing boards. They are neoliberals. They want a free market in the countryside. They are corporatists. They want corporations to provide us with food profitably and efficiently. They want corporations to provide us with houses. And they want corporations to provide us with nature through natural capital financial markets. The Labour Party are not leading us constructively to a vision of a better future. What they are doing is destructive. They are destroying what has been preserved in this country since the Second World War and replacing it only with libertarianism. And all that ever can achieve is that the rich get richer at the expense of everybody else. I cannot see the logic in this. We as small farmers don't have much power, so we have to do what the government tells us to do. They told us to farm more environmentally through the SFI, and a lot of people did. Whereas if our land is consolidated under the control of massive corporations, corporations famously don't do what the government wants. They can lobby very effectively, and they can offshore their profits, and they give their CEOs massive bonuses instead of investing in infrastructure or looking after the environment. To me, this all points to an American trade deal and a complete end to the institutions that make Britain a country to be proud of. And this is another thing George Orwell was right about in 1984. Britain is lost. Our island is known as Airstrip 1, a vassal state of America, dislocated from Europe. And this American vassal state is governed by INGSOC, English socialism. But there's nothing English or socialist about it at all. It's American. So thank you for watching, and do subscribe if you found this thought-provoking. It is harrowing to see the parts of your country that you value so deeply be destroyed for no good reason. But I appreciate that farmers today are not the first people to have felt this.